So I'd like to say a very big welcome to Lee Papworth. Love technology, from the University of Melbourne. So Lee is committed to creating connections and as much as possible resolving barriers in order to empower staff and the people that they support. A topic that flows beautifully from our first session. So Lee is going to delve into the big question, is this request reasonable? During the presentation, Lee has two polls that we will be looking at. So we will read those questions out as well as the responses that you do have. Reminder again, if you have just joined us, you missed a wonderful first session. Never fear, this is going to be up there as well. No pressure there, Lee, but we do remind you that the captioning is available on your Zoom toolbar, but also via the browser. And Caroline, who's facilitating with me today, will put that in the browser, in the chat box. So Lee, welcome to Pathways, and I look forward to your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Debbie, and thank you, everybody. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land where you are. We've come from so many different places, and it's important to acknowledge the traditional owners and past, present, and emerging. And also to think about just how incredible it is that we're meeting virtually, which has led to a much higher presence at the Pathways Conference than it has in the past, when we had to leave our colleagues and meet in person. So what a wonderful opportunity this is for all of us. My presentation, the first introductory slide, asks the question, is this request reasonable? And there are two people walking down a corridor. They might be students. They might be advisors. They might be a student and an advisor. They're walking past a lot of movement, which could be documents, emails, thoughts, all related to what we've been talking about so far this afternoon. Questions about independence, access, facilitating access, and what's reasonable when it comes to providing adjustments for students. So, thinking about that and what Anthony and Julie were sharing with us, and if you weren't in the previous presentation, I'd encourage you to access the materials after the conference, because these are such important questions about how we determine what is going to be reasonable for any student. When I originally planned this discussion, I had gone through a lot of material from previous conferences, from training accessibility advisors, and looking at those lists of potential adjustments that always seem to line up against the medical condition could lead to this adjustment. And I think we can see from the conversations so far today that we've really moved beyond that, really looking at each individual student, their course of study, and potential adjustments that would assist them to access the material and to interact with the material. But what those adjustments might be is sometimes brought into question. So my second slide talks about tools for decision making. It has a picture of a beautiful wooden table with a notebook and a coffee. because when I'm thinking about reasonable adjustments, coffee is my beverage of choice. And this is a photo by Freddie Castro on Unsplash, which is a great resource for visual additions to your slides. But really those tools, is it a pen and paper? Is it a cup of coffee? Is it a taxonomy where you can really test your thinking against a list of adjustments? How do you approach thinking about what's reasonable? Now we have a poll that I'd like to put up now. This is for your consideration. We'll give you a minute to fill the answers. And the question is, have you had to say no to a student, or have you received a request for an adjustment that you were unsure about? If you received a request and thought, oh, well, what does that mean? If I say yes to this request, what am I saying? And if I say no, what am I saying? What are the reasons behind that? How will I justify this to the student? Now, the answers for the poll are 96% of respondents have had to say no, have received a request that you questioned. So I think this really is becoming an integral part of our work going forwards, because the question is, when we say no, what do we do next? And when we deliberate, as Thomas, our keynote speaker, said, don't get stuck in the analysis paralysis. If I do this, then, but if not, how do we go about talking with the student? What is it that is informing my approach? Because so often we find that the education standards don't give us what we're looking for. And we really do need more literature on these issues that's generated in Australia from the people in this conference, so that we have resources that we can go back to, we have things that we can speak to and use when we're thinking about what is this request asking for, where does it sit, and how are we going to approach it? The next slide asks, what comes after no? And it has a picture. Anne Nyard is a photographer who has given us this picture of a body of water. And there are two people rowing a boat, going in one direction and heading in the other, although not quite yet because the sails aren't up. There's a person on a boat and they're doing something with the sails. And the reason I chose this picture is because it's a metaphor for when we're in the boat together and we're paddling together. And when we expect, we talk about academic integrity. We expect the student to produce the work that's going to be assessed. So they're on the boat and they're going to pull up those sails. And then what is it that's required for that to occur, for it to be that person sailing the boat. Now, Julie and Anthony gave us some great examples of students with note-taking and where note-taking can be a hindrance. It can be unnecessary, and sometimes it can be questioned whether the intellectual work is that of the student, if somebody is typing on their behalf. And these are the things that we look at when there are additional people in the mix. How do we ensure that their proofreading is proofreading and not correcting? And that the research and the thinking belongs to the student. But so much of this is about consultation before, during, and after. And it's the questions we ask of the student. I remember the first time a student came and said, I need additional tutoring. And the first thing I thought was, well, no, we don't provide tutoring. You get the lectures and the tutorials and additional tutorial time. But we don't provide it. So what do we do? And that's where the question, tell me more. What do you mean by tutoring? Can be so beneficial, because that's where we get answers from students. Consulting with others in the field, and this is where we have a second poll I'd like to share with you. We can use the Ofsted mailing list. We can ask questions of the wider practitioner community. But sometimes we need to be sure that we do de-identify, that we are very aware that when we post to that mailing list, it's going to be there for perpetuity. Great for those of us who file those emails and save them for if we have a similar question. But this poll asks, do you have a trusted colleague outside your institution who can be your critical friend? And what I mean by that is it's someone you can call, someone you can talk to, you trust their opinion, you can say to them, this is something I need an answer for today, and I don't have time to post it to the list and wait for responses. Or this is something that really feels sensitive and I'm questioning my thoughts about it. This is where I would, if we were in person, tell you in the next coffee meeting to go and find someone you haven't met before and talk to them. Find a critical friend. But I think it's something we do want to encourage, that we use the mailing list, we share information, and we talk about how to de-identify so that people cannot be identified as to whether it's a yes or a no. There are some very complex questions out there about reasonable adjustments, and it wouldn't be fair to those students. Now, for this poll, we have 63% have a yes. 63% do have a critical friend that you can call on to say, I'm questioning this. Can I talk it through and you tell me if I'm on the right track? What am I not taking into consideration? These are the results of conversations with the student, with the teaching staff, with our institutions' processes of decision making. So there's 37% of the people in this presentation we need to find a critical friend for. Or think about, when you talk within your team, who is out there that we can call and talk this problem through with. And I'm putting my hand up to be one of those people. You can contact me and talk through issues. We can look through the files in the mailing list and see if there are similar concerns. But I think what we're finding is we're moving into the future and things are getting very different. The kind of challenges and requests are becoming quite complex. Now we have only a few minutes left. And the next slide is about that consultation and capacity building. This is the last slide. It's another photo of people sitting at a table together, and they're smiling and laughing. 3 people who could be students or advisors or academics or a mix. And a couple of them have laptops, and the third has a notebook. And this is, for me, an image of consultation that's positive and constructive. And I think this is what we need to see more of, because so much of what happens reverts to using email and not getting on the phone or getting the students and academics in the room, whether that's a Zoom room or a physical meeting space, to talk about what happened, what's being offered and what's possible, and also to talk about what came next. Because as we could see from Anthony and Julie's discussion around notes and note-taking, following up with the students found positive outcomes. And we want to keep learning and stretching ourselves as well, because when adjustments are not working or there's a request that isn't reasonable, we really need to keep working with students to build their capacity for future engagement, for independence, and for understanding. This is not being offered because we're going to do this. And that's one of the most important things. Thomas said this morning, we're thinking about relational repair. Where are the opportunities to talk more, to learn more, and to develop more in the students we work with? We can have systemic change, but this part is about developing understanding and moving forward with building skills in our students for independence. So, because I've seen that there is a lack of literature in this area, I'm going to be looking at writing some resources, putting them on the Ofsted list, sharing them so that we can look more at skills development in our advisors as well. And I welcome feedback from all of you when we put that up online. Thank you.
Lee, it's Deb here again. Can I just say thank you very much? That was a brilliant presentation. And also you facilitated that all on your own. I didn't have the opportunity to talk with you beforehand. So thank you very much for being such a professional. Look, there were so many takeaways, and I know that we're about to wrap up, but I really like the part that we are stepping into the unknown. Things are evolving so much, but also that we don't need to be the expert in everything, and that it's very good and it's encouraged by all sectors to have someone that you're able to talk to and just toss around some ideas. And sometimes when you're so engrossed in a situation, sometimes it's just a simple thing from left field that changes everything. So I certainly encourage that, and I'm really looking forward to the research that you continue to do this or to do, so we can get those resources that you're talking about. I think that is going to be brilliant. So thank you very much for your time and sharing your expertise today, Lee. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. There's a question there about the Ofsted mailing list, the Australian Tertiary Education Network on Disability. If you're not aware of that, then we'll share that through the conference proceedings as well, so that you can sign up and have that communication.
Definitely. Yep. it's a great email list. So thank you very much.